Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Furiously Curious Show. I got my friend Bill Boesterd with me here. Bill, if you got asked, how do you know me? What would you tell someone?
How do I know you?
Yeah.
How did I get to know you?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. And my memory fails
faded.
me so often. I can't remember what I did yesterday. I think I got to know you more during Freedom Sessions.
Yeah.
And I had the privilege of coming to know you through another friend of yours or a contact of yours that thought maybe there was an opportunity to do a podcast. So that's a few years ago.
Yes.
And then we talked about it, and and I can't remember the specifics of that, but
Yeah, mainly the Freedom Sessions, yeah.
Freedom Sessions, for sure, we got to know each other a little bit more.
So I've known of you, I guess, for quite a while, and I was always intrigued with Christianity in business. And so I thought it'd be good to have you on and just chat about that. But maybe start with like a brief history about you personally and also your company.
Okay, so me personally, I grew up in a family that went to a Reformed church environment, which, kind of fostered somewhat of a religious setting, very very much caring about what other people think of you, and I think that kind of shapes and develops a person a little bit, maybe not necessarily in a good way, but grew up in that environment, was married very young, was married at 18 years old to a pregnant young lady. And back then you married the girl.
Yeah.
That's what you did. The gentleman married the girl. So I did. And not without lots of challenges. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary on the 28th of June. So thank you, Lord. So young family starting off, 18 years old. At 25, I ended up buying my uncle's business. He was very, I would think he was tired, and he wanted a change, and I had an opportunity to come in. So very young, I think maybe too young, but anyways.
So this is what, 42 years ago?
40, it was 1981, so 43 years ago. So started off in that and continued to grow that to today. I'm still a business owner, still owning shares in that same family business, and now we're in succession into the next generation. So my daughter and son-in-law and my two sons are now owners as well. So that's a new journey, succession journey.
Yeah,
kind of exciting.
So and the business back when you bought it was did the same thing as it is now? Or
no, it's completely different. Back then we did a poultry live haul from farm to processing plant, and that's gone, and now we're in forest byproducts.
Poultry live haul, like you haul chickens?
Yeah, we haul chickens.
Okay.
That's right. Chickens and turkeys, anything with feathers, we haul them. So that's completely changed. That's gone.
So you took that over, and then that wasn't a feasible business, or what made you switch?
No, it was a good business, and we did that when I was an employee of my uncle's, that was 7 years, and then another 18 years, so 25 years. And that's one of the things I think we start to assume things. Assuming is something we should not do. And I assumed we'd be there for life, and all of a sudden there was a shocking reality that no, we weren't going to be there for life. They had a change of business plan, and we weren't going to be part of it. So
you were contracting to somebody to do that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a supplier.
To the processing plant.
Okay.
And they decided they were going to do a larger part of it themselves and own a larger part of it themselves. And there was a new system coming in that I thought we'd be part of, and then kind of at the last minute, it was 6 months, but in business that's not very long when you have to make a big change.
And how big of a part of your business was that when you lost that?
It was about 75%.
Okay.
Which normally speaking you would never survive.
Yeah.
But by the grace of God we did.
So you switched, and so you had already started something else?
At that point, we had 3 other services that we were already doing in smaller parts, and so we grew some of those. And now today, we have one of those opportunities that we're focused on,
which is
forest byproducts and the resulting products you can have, and then installing them with pneumatic blowing trucks. And
Okay. So that's like the words that you guys use inside the company. So what would that like in more layman's terms? Like you're selling sawdust and wood chips. And
sawdust, wood chips, playground materials, soils, anything that you can make a lot of different products out of the leftovers of a tree.
Okay. So you buy the trees raw and then you get them chipped and...
We actually so in one part of our business, we get paid to take in land clearing, and then we process that through grinders, and then we compost that. And then other products we purchase, like bark and sawdust, we'll purchase from a sawmill. And some of those we further process, and others, like sawdust, are generally ready to go into poultry barns. Primarily is our client group.
Yeah. Huh. And what's the business at today, like size wise, and what are you guys? Is it growing? Is it?
It's growing. It's growing a gradual growth. Every year we do have growth. We're at about somewhere around 50 employees now. So that's a nice, manageable size still, and focused mostly on the Lower Mainland, but we do go into the U.S., probably to about Seattle and across to Vancouver Island and Kelowna, and at times we'll go up into areas like Golden, so there's different opportunities through the province, mostly in the province of BC so far.
Okay. And when did Christianity hit your life?
So at about 28 years old, I'd say that's when God says, that's as far as you're going to go, son, in the way that you've been going. And he turned me around. That's quite an interesting story in its own. But I was about 28 years old. I would say when it affected me in a positive way in business, I was probably, I'd say around 35, when there was a fairly dramatic shift in my thinking around business as an opportunity to live out my Christianity with more of a purposefulness.
Okay. So I want to get to that. So what happened at 28? That was that, like you said, you had to stop doing what you were currently doing. What was it that you felt like you had to stop doing, and what did
at 28 years old?
Yeah, what happened?
Well, at 28 years old, I went to church. I was always in church in the morning. I mean, we had church, as you recall, 2 times a Sunday, and I was there in the morning, shaking knees oftentimes from the night before. But I was there. I was a pew warmer. I just made my space known. I was in church.
Yeah.
But it was a dead existence as far as spirituality goes. But there was one.
So why did you go if you didn't really care?
I think I went because my parents were there and my friends were there and relatives were there, and that's what you did. You just went to church. That was just something that you grew up with. Church is part of life. You have to go to church. Well, so I went to church because really, you do that.
Yeah. So you didn't put much thought into it. It was the habit. And it was just...
I daydream while I'm sitting there and go home, put in my time.
Okay. So that morning you go to church when you're 28 and...
That was a process. It didn't start in church. It started at a youth conference, and it started with a very good friend of mine who was then principal of the private school that our children attended, and Jim Beakey, I call him my brother Andrew, but he had a way of... You
call me your brother Andrew?
I call him my brother Andrew. Andrew said to Peter, come and see, we have found the Christ.
Okay.
And Jim had a very gentle way of just starting a conversation. We were watching that night. We were at a youth conference, and we were chaperones, so we were sitting under this tree, making sure that the young teenagers didn't leave their designated cabins. I think some of them may still have, but so he drew me into this conversation that gradually, I didn't even realize, we're starting to talk about family and then business. I was in business then, and life and gradually just Christianity without even, I think, oh my goodness, like I've never had a conversation like this before. But I think that was the day that really changed. There was a change that day, and from there were events that followed that were very interesting in the way of, you think like, wow, only by the grace of God and by his sovereignty could something like that come together. But there was just a shift, and it wasn't me. I mean,
and a shift in what? Like a shift in interest, a shift in thinking. Like what was the?
I think a shift in thinking, a shift in curiosity. I was asking questions that I never asked before, and I had a privilege of asking I was a part-time bus driver. So Friday afternoons I'd go to drive a bus.
Yeah.
And Jim had a free hour at the end of the day, and I'd always knock on, it was almost every week, knock on his door. Jim, I have another question. So it was just there's that, in the Beatitudes, the hungering and thirsting after righteousness. And I don't think I had a clue of what was going on, but I think the Spirit of God was leading me through that time, and just making me curious about things I had absolutely no curiosity about before. And yeah, I remember Jim saying, read your Bible. Do you have a Bible? Yeah, I have a Bible. Read it. I came back a week or so later and says, man, oh man, we're King James back then. Says, I don't really understand a lot of it. Read it anyways. So I did, right? What you can understand, you start to process those. But then you start to have questions, because there's a lot of things that are mysterious. So, yeah.
It's amazing, hey, how just reading the Bible is something that even many people that go to church just don't do.
Sadly so.
But it's such I think we often think of Christianity as like, oh, I have to go do so many things or whatever, stuff like that. But just the very basic thing of reading, 10 minutes a day. I always tell people 10 minutes a day, 60 hours a year.
Read something.
Read it, yeah. Okay, so you started reading, and when did you claim it as your own?
It was probably for me I think it was around a 3-year journey, 2 or 3 year journey. And just trying to understand, you and I can understand where we came from. Experiential grace, I think they would often relate to or talk about. But I didn't even know what I was looking for, but it was the continued question, am I really a Christian? And, I'd still look at the things that I was doing at times and no, I can't be, and so that my focus was on myself and not on Christ. And I think that's the big mistake that searchers often make, is that they're looking still at that struggle they have, pride and selfishness that shows up for the rest of our life. And if we're thinking that, wow, man, I still struggle with things, well, if it's about me, I am going to fall short continuously. It's not about me. It's about Christ and what he accomplished for us. And when that realization came to pass, and that again, I started reading, listening to other people, and when that understanding of justification was a big one by Bob George, Classic Christianity, was probably the one. It was an audio version, but that allowed me to break free. Used to say, and I still do, I was having a little discussion with my daughter the other day, but felt like this butterfly that's stuck in this cocoon, struggling to release itself, and all of a sudden it is released, and it's this full-fledged, colorful butterfly that flies freely. And that's how I felt like when I understood what Christ had accomplished for me and for us. I thought, wow. But yeah, so that was a journey.
Yeah. Well, and then so you're running your business as this is happening. As this is happening, do you notice yourself making shifts in your business at all? Not. Or what did that really happen until you were 35? Because we didn't really. I'm assuming growing up you were never taught how to run a business as a Christian. It was always very separate.
Your business is separate from you're a Christian, and you have all these little compartments. You have your family. And you have, you've got yourself, and then your family, and then your business and your social life. And, and your business is just separate, that's got nothing to do with Christianity. Like, get out of my life, you have no business interrupting any thoughts around business. So.
And why do you think that is?
I don't know. It shouldn't be, for sure. It's not the way I think now. I have one lens I look through, and it's glorifying God in all that I do, all day long, everywhere. But that reality was posed to me by a question that I've shared with you. But you know what? Can I share it again?
Yeah. Share it again, yeah.
I went to a conference.
And this is when you were 35?
Yeah, okay. I was about 35. I went to a conference, Fellowship of Companies for Christ Canada, and how I got there was kind of interesting. But again, at first I got an invitation, and I thought, is Jesus Lord of your life, and is he the is he sort of the chairman of your business? And I thought, oh, get out of here. Like, man, leave me alone. I got enough to think about and do.
Yeah.
But
and you were thinking that as a Christian already.
As a Christian, I was thinking like, just, this is my business.
Yeah.
What are you meddling with this question? So about a year later, I was invited again to a conference, first conference in Canada. I thought, okay, I'll go. So the main speaker, Alan Ross, posed the question to us. So we're a small group of maybe 50 to 100 business owners, and he says, "What do you think God will hold us accountable for as business owners? Might He ask?" Because Paul says we'll all give an account. Well, that's kind of interesting. All give some account. Well, maybe He'll ask us how many employees we had, or how many places of business we had. We're kind of talking about how many cities we're in, or maybe we're an international business, or he said maybe He'll ask us how much profit did you make, or maybe He'll ask us, how much money did you give to missions, right? I mean, maybe that's the question. Or he said maybe He'll just ask this one question. And I thought, well, what else would He ask a business owner? He said maybe He'll ask us, what did you do with all the people that I sent to you? That question changed my
What did you do with all the people?
What did you do with all the people that I sent to you?
Being your employees and
being
customers.
My employees, being clients, being people we meet in the highways and byways of life. Like, what did you do with them? Did you do anything with them? You just pass them off as some perchance meeting, or
means to an end of your business, means to get you.
That changed my thinking, like the how part, like how to live a life as a Christian in business is a continual question for me. I don't have the answer, but I definitely, from that time forth, that became a really important part of shaping a culture in our business and my life, really. I thought, wow, this is, what do I do with that? Lord, what would I do when I stand before you and I look, around, and I envision when I look off to the side and I see someone and they look at me and they look at me and and the look in their eyes is, you knew and you never shared with me? You knew and you never told me?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was when you were 35. So that's what 37 years ago?
68. So that's a while ago.
Yeah. In the higher 30s, I think. As you look back now, like what would you say? What does it mean to be a business owner that's also a Christian? Like what if since you were posed that question, and now you've had 30 plus years of being aware of that, knowing that that's something you are responsible for,
right?
What does that look like? What does it look like practically in your business?
That's a good question. I think that's something that takes careful thought. Like there's people that would say they have a Christian business. I don't. I hesitate around that. I think I'm a Christian in business. There's things in, maybe you have a bookstore that's a Christian bookstore, and you say, like, I have to have all Christians, but we don't know the heart of people, right? So first of all, you don't know that every person in the business is a Christian. So in our business, that would be almost impossible to do. Not impossible, but
also not a goal necessarily.
A goal. You're preaching to the choir, so you want to live your life out before people that don't yet know Him. So I think it's very important that the people that are observing us know that we are Christians, and then the opportunity.
And how would they know that?
I think part of it is by just what you've said at our meetings, all open in prayer. Well, that says something, I guess, right? I mean,
and meetings as in like a barbecue,
like a Christian,
or a
Christmas, something where a whole gathering is there. I'm not saying every meeting but when there's a Christmas, we have a Christmas breakfast for our families, and all the children are there, and then I'll open in prayer, or someone will. So something like that. So they get to know. In our employee handbook, it says that our business is operated on Christian principles. So there's little hints, I would say. I don't put up a pedestal in the middle of the office and start preaching. That's not my responsibility. But to develop a culture, then 1 Corinthians 13 style of love. I mean, if we take love and we put our name in front of that, Bill is patient, Bill is kind, Bill is, all of those.
Fruits of the Spirit.
The fruit of the Spirit. And if that is consistent, that's the opportunity we have to speak about that. Who are we as a company and how do we want to represent ourselves in the community? Well, you speak about that. And so those are kind of things that you can, without being respectful and gentle and yet intentional.
And have you seen fruits?
That's a really good question. There's one person in my business history, I was invited to his baptism, and I was sitting in the audience, and then he, so he has to give his testimony. He says, one of my pastors is sitting right there. Well, I wasn't a pastor, but that was the one time that I can remember that specifically someone came to faith. But I always think that that's really, I'm probably going to see less of that. I don't think I'm the one that's going to lead them to Christ. I'm the one that hopefully when they have a meeting with someone that becomes much more intentional, that we have fostered an environment of Christianity that they've experienced, that they would allow themselves to be invited somewhere or whatever it might be. I think that's more my intention and my hope that happens. Yeah.
As you look back, do you have any regrets of how you approached it and that you could have been, I mean, we always to some degree are going to say we could have been more intentional or done more and stuff like that. But like, is there anything specific that sticks out that you're like, I this was something I wish I would have implemented way earlier or didn't do, and something like that?
I think you quietly, if I think, I look over to my side and see someone that I neglected or somehow that, that still causes me some quiet emotional concern, right? But we tried a Bible study for a season and invited people to come, and that's, when we start at 4 a.m. and other people, so that was very difficult. I don't know, like I said, now I'm not as active anymore, but that's always a question I've had, the how. I don't know that you do what you think you can do, and I don't know, Kyle.
But I'm assuming you prayed for your employees and you...
Yes, and we have a chaplain, so we have a part-time chaplain that's available to our employees now.
Okay, like an on-staff chaplain.
Yeah, he is a pastor of a small church,
okay.
And so we have him available to our employees, and he'll come to our social gatherings and make himself known and chat with people so that, if someone has a concern or an issue, whether it's a family member or themselves or whatever it might be, then we have that chaplaincy available to them. So that's one.
And how did you explain that to your employees when you implemented that? You just told them and said, like, what chaplain's coming in? I mean, for a lot of people, they don't even know what, probably define a chaplain. So
yeah,
how did you tell them that this was something that was coming and how they could potentially benefit from
how they could use that? So that's almost an ongoing conversation. And he'll put a little write-up in the newsletter or something to just acquaint them with the different aspects of care, I would say, right? And you hope that in that care you have an opportunity to share Christ with them when that opportunity avails itself. So little things that we try.
Yeah, okay. Some of the biggest lessons you've learned in all your years of business, not necessarily particular to Christianity and how it intersects with your business, but just more in general as you look back over 40 years in business?
I think, it depends on who I'm speaking to, but I would say if I was speaking to a person that owned a business by themselves like I did, there's a temptation at times to think like I need to make all the decisions and I'm the best decision maker. I'll just use myself as an example. I thought I was a smart guy and I wasn't, right? But that's, I think, where we really need to be cautious. So I would encourage, especially that solo entrepreneur, that person that has full privilege to make all their own decisions, to have a mentor. If they don't have a business partner, find a mentor, or more than one, ideally, that you can, those big decisions or bigger decisions, or maybe almost, all decisions, you say like, I wonder if I should. Don't wonder about that by yourself. I've made mistakes there because I could make I bought, I sold, I hired, I released. And I think that's pretty important. Don't be a lone ranger. I think that's one area of life that I made. I made mistakes because I didn't search out that counsel.
Yeah. And mentoring, like how would you say you go find a mentor, or like what do you look for in a mentor when if someone's listening and says, okay, I'm going to look for a mentor in my business, like practically what are you looking for?
There's many, I would think anyways. I mean, there's business owners that have been in the community that you respect. And I think most often when someone goes to someone and says, I need a little help, however you say that, most people are open to hearing that. So you'd look for someone that you respect, someone that shares the values, from what you can see, shares the values you have, and just say, hey, could we have a coffee? Like, I have some questions that I'm trying to get some answers to, and maybe it develops into a relationship where you say, could we meet, once a month or every 2 months, or can I call you if I have a question? And I would say most of us that are in that place, a little bit more seasoned and have maybe a bit more time, would be open to that. I mean, we want to give back, right? It's a nice way for a business owner to give back.
Who were some of your mentors?
I've had different mentors, some of them in books, but one of them's passed away. Lindsay Brooks was a very good mentor of mine. Peter Vanderpool was a mentor of mine. George Martins was a mentor of mine. So I've had a number of different people that I could go to say, I'm wondering.
Any of those guys that you have an example or something you remember that they enlightened you to something?
Lindsay Brooks was probably the one that he was a strong Christian and a consultant, and I can't come up with any specifics right now. I didn't actually think about that, but I would knock on his door like I did on Jim Bickey's and say, Lindsay, I've got a question. And so we would discuss various business opportunities and business questions and leadership questions. And so none that I can say, oh yeah, that one, but.
Yeah. So when you think about lessons learned, we often learn our biggest lessons through failures. Every business has failures of different kinds. If you look back at your failures in your business, would you be willing to share some of those and kind of what you learned from them, what you gained from them?
So the one where where we lost the contract, I mean, I was assuming things that I was not making sure were true. And that was a big failure. I mean, it was a failure on my part for just assuming that everything was fine. We didn't have a written contract. We had a contract that was just kind of an ongoing service agreement verbally for the most part. And I assumed things, and that ended up being a disaster. I think another one that comes to mind was it was a big opportunity, and we were negotiating. The company that we were talking to was in Ontario, and that's a long ways away. And so the final proposal we made by email, huge mistake. Like, I think if it's a transaction, it's a smaller amount of dollars, and it's a standard fee almost. Well, you don't have to sit in front of somebody. But in this case, we lost that opportunity, and I think the biggest reason we lost is we weren't sitting across the table from that person and negotiating together, watching someone's facial expressions. We didn't know. We didn't know for a long time. Actually, we never really did find out what actually the reason was why, because everything was looking so good. And then in the end, they said no, which was the end of a long journey, another business that we were developing, and caused it to shut down. So, don't again assume things like, so that was a big mistake. I think when you are negotiating things, be willing to sit with
the relationship side.
Yeah, the relationship side, so important.
So after that lesson, did you kind of implement more of that, of like just taking the time to build the relationships with people and be less of the mechanical, transactional?
Very important. I mean, I'm slowly fading out of our business, but yeah, relationships have to be a part of business transaction.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you do practically in your business that reflects your beliefs? We talked about that briefly already, but maybe talk about that a little bit more. Like, what is, do some of the things you've implemented, Chaplain, and trying to reflect in some areas that your faith, but your employees are, the core, I think, of the company. That make things
For sure,
make things happen. So, how do you lead your employees well? How do you care for them? What are some of those things you've done practically that also give them more confidence that you actually care more about them as individuals rather than just the service they're providing you as an employee?
Yeah, that's a good question, and specifically a difficult question. But I think developing people and trusting people. The little book I wrote called "The Wonder of Trust."
Where can people get that book?
It's on Amazon.
By Bill Boesterd.
By Bill Boesterd. And like I said, Kyle, I wrote that book ideally for my great-great-grandchildren that might never have met me to know that I was a Christian in business. But when I think it was it was the 2010 Olympics where we all of a sudden had a large opportunity with that, and realized that we needed to develop a larger team than we had, and to organize ourselves better than we were. So I put
an opportunity for your business to provide mulch and all
we were doing a large. So in the Olympics back in 2010, there was a large area that was forested that they were going to develop into the various Olympic venues that they're going to offer. And up until then, they would have just burned this. They'd take the logs out, bring them in for as sawmill material, and then the slash would be burned. And we proposed to them we had an in-vessel that was like inside of a plastic tube, but we had a composting system that we proposed to them. And they accepted that, and that turned into a huge project. So all that slash we composted, and then we would blow it back along the various roadways and whatever. But so there was going to be there was a lot of work involved there, and a lot of teamwork, and we still had the regular work that we had in the valley. So then I thought, we need to develop a team. And that was the first time that we developed a management team. And up until then, like I said, don't be that Lone Ranger. Up until then, I was the Lone Ranger. And I thought, this is not good. So trusting people around you. And I think especially, again, that solo entrepreneur that's on his or her own. And now saying, I'm better off to make decisions with other people. And when you draw people in, people you respect, people that you have watched and that they have a gift, they have a skill set, they have a character, they have a personality that would lend well to a small group of managers, a management team, to trust them and to, allow them to know that you trust and respect them is a huge opportunity for them to grow. And I think then it goes further, right? I mean, those people start to develop other people. I think that everyone should have a person they're developing to back you up. So when you trust someone to do what even, beyond what they think themselves. Like oftentimes, I don't know that you do. You have the capacity for this, and I'll walk with you while you learn. So that's really
I think
investing.
that second part is really key, that you walk with you while you learn, because you can tell someone you trust them and then leave them on their own.
Yeah, that could be.
So you trust. Okay, so trust and respect. Talked about respect. Like how do you show respect to your management team? Like, why did you bring up that word specifically along with trust?
So I think the respecting part is when there's an issue that comes up or there's an opportunity to sit down with someone, mistakes being made. Mistakes are learning opportunities, and so I've encouraged mistakes. If there's no mistakes, there's no risk being taken. So I've said, let's not be afraid to make a mistake. Let's not make it 3 times. Let's learn from it the first time. Maybe it happens the second time, but let's not be afraid to make mistakes. So if someone makes a mistake, now you respect the person that made the mistake, and we walk through it. What did we learn? What can we do differently next time? So that person is relieved that, oh boy, I'm still here. So I think that's respecting people that, you took a risk. Thank you very much. It didn't work out like you had expected or we had expected, but now you're going to encourage that person to think about opportunities going forward. They'll take another risk, calculated, careful, but still not, being rigid and saying like, no, I can't do this. We find that often people will not take the risk because they think if I do and it goes wrong, I'll lose my job or whatever. Yeah. So it's respecting people in that respect, respecting them for their ideas. They've been gifted with thoughts and ability to create and think. Well, listen to them. I mean, there's people that come up with great ideas. What can we do with that? So it's just growing people. I want people, I've often said, like if they come into our business and they leave a year later, I want them to have grown while they were with us. And that's just respecting the person for what they can make as an offering to a company. So that's
and what does that look like? So I can understand more how that looks like in a management team setting, having been there myself. What does that look like for a labor style job? A lot of times we have companies that have, the majority of the labor is on the floor, or, it's in production or manufacturing, whatever. How do you do that at that level, or at that group, showing that respect and showing that, their ideas matter, that they've only worked for you for a year, that they leave better?
So cross-training is something we're familiar with, right? And if someone, I think we watch people and we watch everyone's a little bit different, but the person that's eager to learn and would like to learn something new, or, they have an opportunity, they ask for an opportunity to try something different, to be open to that rather than saying, no, this is what you were hired for. You were hired to stand right there and work right there. That's kind of taking away from a person and disrespecting their potential. But to be open to that growth, someone that wants to grow. Not everyone wants to grow, but I would hope most people do want to grow. And then when that opportunity is available to them to try something different, to say, okay, let's train you in this. Sure. Yeah. You want to learn that? Good. So I think it's just respecting people for their desires and their opportunities that they want to accomplish.
Yeah. So you've got coached a bunch over the years. You're a coach now yourself as well. I think Dream Coaching
Dream Manager.
Dream Manager. What's that about?
So the Dream Manager was written by Matthew Kelly. So it's really a 4-part: emotional, physical, spiritual, and intellectual. The different, and then broken down into different areas of life. Just really life coaching, and they have a curriculum all laid out. It's a 12-month curriculum, or 12 components. And so you walk people through that for a season of life to really look at who they are and the potential they have. And
you do that for your employees, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so anybody can sign up in your company to get that? Like, it's basically an offer that you have out to your employees. If you want dream coaching, you get to. Okay.
Yeah. I've kind of put it aside for a while, and I'm kind of rekindling it now. And
Yeah, that's pretty cool. As being in business a long time, you're coaching people as well yourself. What are some of the main things that you teach or you would coach someone that's new in business on? Someone that's you were 28 when you guys started in business, owning your own business. 35 when you started trying to really get intentional about implementing your beliefs and showing your beliefs in your business. But maybe just even broader than that, like what if you have a business owner coming to you in their 30s and they say, hey Bill, like mentor me, coach me, what would be some of the things that you would focus on or talk about, or that you believe are just really important and passionate about?
Is there one thing?
Or maybe it's a bunch of things, maybe just the ones that come to mind.
So I'm looking, Kyle, at the word humility there, right? Humility is a big word. I think oftentimes misunderstood. Meekness is another word. So just style, like how I think just exploring how we conduct ourselves in our business, in the marketplace. Who are we? How do we show up? What's important to us? I think just exploring that somewhat, and then what are your goals? What are your dreams? Where do you want to go? How do you want to get there? A coach is going to walk with you towards that objective, and taking you on the steps that you're able to take, but holding you accountable to get there. So, there's, I think, in all of those areas of life where someone finds an opportunity and says, that's an area that, maybe it's financial management. Maybe there's, I think a big part of it is the emotional side of life, and people that, as we've talked about, in our rear view mirror, where we see a relationship that's maybe not as good as it should be. So business and life, I think, are, for a business owner, that kind of works together. So, who are the people in my life that I should spend some time on setting something right, so that I can walk forward with that burden released from me. What should I be learning? Spiritually, who am I and where am I going and why am I going there, and what and then just I think there's a physically, am I in the shape that I should be or want to be? And so focusing on that area of life. So it's a wholesome approach to living a healthy life.
And the what like if someone goes and does that, takes that coaching that you offer, someone else does, and implements that, like what's the win on the other side? Like why is it worth the time? Like if they're successful now, making good money, and things are going well, and they believe there's lots more upside and stuff like that, why go put yourself through the discomfort of asking those questions or trying to make those things happen?
Yeah. So John Maxwell talks about your personal growth plan, and I think we should always be growing somewhere in life. We should have an objective of some sort, and they can be different. They can vary throughout our life and our life season. But who am I? Where am I going? How am I getting there? And what's important? And I think if we can focus on those areas of life and find those areas that I say, like, oh, that's an area I need to pay attention to, and have somebody walk with you while you're addressing that, you're going to come through that and continue to go through that. But I think you'll be a healthier person, emotionally more healthy, saying like, wow, I accomplished something. Maybe it's losing 20 or 30 pounds. Well, that's not an easy task. So
no.
Yeah, different things I think that would show up on a journey like that would allow a person to say, that's an area of opportunity that I would really like to have accountability in and walk with somebody on. And I want to, accountability is just, we're going to get a lot more done when we have someone asking us, how did you do on that? You said you were going to accomplish this by yesterday. How did you make out?
Yeah.
Yeah. And life is complicated, and life is full of opportunities and challenges.
Yeah.
So,
as you ran a business all these years, I think often it's tempting for business owners to put their business in front of their family, or I mean, it's something that very quickly gives accolades. You can see the impact of what you're doing, and when you're playing with your kids on the floor, you don't really necessarily see the accolades of that unless you do it consistently for 20 years, and then you have a good relationship with your kids. It's easy to make work put first. Did you experience those challenges as well, and how did you manage to work through them?
I managed them very poorly.
Hmm.
I was very busy. I still am. I have to really be careful. I'm a yes person. I need some help. Yes, I'll be there. And I just had that conversation with a couple of people yesterday that I'm somewhat mentoring. I have an opportunity that takes me into Africa by Zoom. And so both of these people are very, very eager to please and work very hard. And I says, be so careful that you sit down with your spouse first. And, what do you need from me? What time, where I think as a business owner, you have seasons. You have seasons in life that are very busy. You have seasons in life that you can maybe say, okay, there's a little season. Maybe it's a day, maybe it's a weekend, maybe it's a week. But, to take that time and make sure that you're focused on the people that are important, but then, engage them. Way too often I was too busy for my family, and thankfully, by the grace of God, we're still a close family. I think maybe I've caught up a little bit on that now, but we have to be so cautious because business can absorb our emotional.
And do you think that was just because you didn't see other business people model that, and because your intention wasn't, I'm going to pick my business over my kids or whatever. It was like that, but you found yourself in that situation. So why do you think that was? Like, it wasn't. I'm assuming to some degree it wasn't taught and modeled.
No.
And it seems like it's a conversation that I'm seeing people have more than before. But I mean, I haven't been around that long, so not as long as you anyway. So
well, I think the other challenge as a Christian is you get invited to participate in volunteer activity or something, right? Hey, could you help us with this? And so we have this. I think what we can have is this, I'm going to use the word guilt, and I'm not sure if it's the right word, but, we do it because we think I'm doing this, for the kingdom. God is inviting me and calling me to this, and I better say yes. There's a verse, and I can't remember where it is, but it says, don't become weary in well-doing. And I think we can overdo it and be out of balance, lose sight of our wife, lose sight of our spouse, lose sight of our children's needs, not being at their ball games because, I've got to whatever. I mean, I think we can get so caught up in business and well-intentioned Christian activity that we're out of balance.
Talk to me about money. Money is something that is generally not talked about very much. At least how I, from what I can see and growing up, stuff like that. There's a lot of secrets around money. We know that money can be very tempting, and blinding in the sense of that it gives you power or that you don't actually have, and that it's your own. How have you thought through having money? A for-profit business, your goal is to make more money, but you're also, that's not where your value is based and how much you have, even though that's tempting to, feel that way. How have you thought through money over the years and kind of what's your thinking around it now?
So are you specifically more talking about like the profits?
Yeah, profits. Yeah. I think mainly profits, yeah.
Because I think that's where, originally that verse, or it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a wealthy man to enter heaven. That little, and I was really concerned about that. I thought like, whoa, mind you, truck drivers rarely get wealthy. So that's, neither do truck business owners. But I think you cannot have a healthy business unless you're profitable. So that's one thing. Profits are essential. So I see our business as a ministry. I mean, it's a business, but it's an opportunity to minister to the needs of people, to have a healthy environment. We have drug testing so that we have, our employees come in and they're tested they have to be drug free, and we still have that opportunity to do that. But that allows for other employees to know it should be a safe environment. I mean, it's hard to guarantee something, but we try our best to have a safe, healthy environment. Well, but you need to be profitable to continue to offer that environment. So profits are important. And then what we do with those profits, well, that's of course another question. How do we, are we investing in the kingdom? I hope we should be.
Yeah.
We have.
And what about if I don't know the financials of your business over the years. I don't need to know, but I'm assuming there was times where the bank account was going up and up and up, and you're like, oh wow, like this is going well and stuff like that, and you start feeling that. So I think to a degree, it's easy to feel self-reliance. I mean, if you're a human, I'm assuming you felt that.
Yeah.
To a certain degree. Like, what about that side? Like, how do you not let it deceive you? Like the deceitfulness of riches. Like,
so our business has been more often tough than easy on the financial side. So I'd say, we've had more seasons where we're, just making it work, right? And I think that's more often a business reality than the business that's just has cash gushing. Competition will make sure, generally speaking, that there's just not cash gushing out from every.
Yeah.
And so most of us in business, there's a small margin of profit, and I think we're deceived if we think every business owner is just
rolling in the dough,
rolling in cash.
But I mean, if you're running a blue collar, service business, and you're providing a good product, if that's in drywalling or plumbing or like construction or any stuff like that, like it's easy. It's not hard with a smaller crew to make $300,000 a year, $400,000 a year, $500,000 a year, and so I mean that's not crazy money, but it's still
substantial.
It's a substantial amount of money and stuff like that. So so even with that, how do you protect? Do you think there's ways to protect yourself? You talked about accountability, but I think it's just something that doesn't really, get talked about at all. It's just like that's the one thing that people will, always keep private, and maybe it should be that way. I'm not really sure. I'm just curious, kind of like how.
So I think there's a responsibility, and generally speaking, if you're serving well, you will need to grow your business. So that profit's generally going back into your business to grow the business, and there's every reason to do so. I mean, if you're serving a client group that say we want more of what you're offering, well, you've got to expand your facilities. There's generally speaking, and I haven't asked every business, how I would say generally speaking, businesses are reinvesting their profits back into their business, and they're sharing that, some of that with their employees, hopefully. They're investing in the kingdom, hopefully. And so there's, I've not had the problem of just, wow, what do I do with this? That's
okay. Fair enough.
Not been my problem, Kyle.
Fair enough.
I wish it had been, maybe, but
yeah.
Maybe I'm thankful it hasn't been, but yeah.
Okay. Cool. I appreciate you coming on and answering these questions. I think it is very, very helpful and insightful to get your perspective on it. So if people do want to reach out to you and ask you questions, maybe someone's looking for a mentor, how would they do that?
beboesterd@gmail.com.
beboesterd@gmail.com. There you have it, guys. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed that. As always, if you did, please like, subscribe, share it with family and friends, leave a comment. Goes a long way. In addition to that, I also have my Patreon account that you can support the show there.